Welcome back, everyone, to Shot of Culture, queer tales over kava and tequila sips. I'm your co-host, Lala, and I'm here with
Peelo G.
Peelo. We've got a great episode coming today. We have a guest with us. Tell us about today's show.
Super excited. We have the fabulous Amit Patel, also known as Amit Dances on Instagram. He is a dancer, director, storyteller, as well as the founder of Ishmi Dance Company and the Desi Dance Community. Please welcome Amit Patel to the show, everyone.
Awesome. Hey, everybody.
It's so great to have you today. I mean, thank you so much for joining us. You and I have known each other for a while now, so this is kind of fun that we get to sit down and just like have some conversation, right? I'm constantly mesmerized by your Instagram, first and foremost, right? Like your dance and just the choreography behind it, all of your dance routines, especially with the South Asian Indian influence behind it. So tell us, how did you get into dance and like what is your inspiration?
One, just thank you both so much for having me. I'm excited, a little nervous, but I feel like the tequila is taking off the edge. But a little bit more about, I guess, how I kind of got into it. So I started dance at a very young age with more just to get connected with like roots and stuff like that, growing up in the Bay Area. And with time, I started just learning a lot of like Eastern, Western dance styles. And then in college, I started exploring a lot more how dance was, a lot of my dance experience was very heteronormative in that my role was very much like, okay, I have to play this very masculine personality in every situation. And so after a point, I was like, okay, is this all there is to it? Is there more? What can I do more with it? And so then I started exploring like different like queer dance forms, whether it's like, or just like learning that they even exist.
Right.
And so one day I picked up a pair of heels. I like went to a class in San Francisco, and I was just like in love with dancing in heels. And so then the class was really cool, but then I didn't understand or I didn't know the music. And so a big part of me just bridging together all my different like intersections was, okay, how can I combine South Asian music with queerness and with heels? And so then I ended up creating a Bollywood heels dance class in San Francisco in 2016. And that was like the first time I got to like explore queerness within dance and Indian culture at the same time. And I was like, this is so cool. Like all my intersections meet. And then I started doing that with like Indian contemporary work as well. And then I was like, okay, there is a place where all of these things can meet. And I just got really excited, and I've been doing that ever since. And it's been really nice to like feel that there's no stopping to where it can grow, which is like really exciting. So I've been just doing, that's very much the short abridged version of like everything. But I feel like I'm just very much like still in discovery mode, which is like really exciting after doing it for like 15 plus years. I feel like I'm still like learning, trying new things. So yeah, I'm very happy right now.
That's amazing. And I commend you doing that in heels.
Oh my God.
You need some lessons in that.
I do. Yeah. Are you available after this?
Oh my God. It's a mission. Funny enough, I was like, I thought the ballet training surprisingly helped me so much in heels because you're already on the ball of your feet. So then when I wore heels, I was like, oh, this is not bad. I have support, So I thought it was like, but walking is still the hardest thing.
Yeah. You make it sound so easy.
and then you go out on a night and you wear heels and then you're like, nope, this is not. I can dance in them, but walking like a street is not going to happen.
But pain is beauty, right?
It is.
For y'all stiletto wearing beauties. I love that you've incorporated the South Asian element. I'm curious as to the receptiveness in the community, right? Doing something different. Obviously, being queer is hard enough. How has that been for you?
So when I first started in 2016, I think a little bit about one, just being South Asian. There's a lot of, I come from a somewhat conservative, background when it comes to family and tradition and all of that. And my parents they immigrated to the States in the 80s, and they're I guess, a big thing within immigrant families that they often try to retain their perception of India in the 80s here, or they try to replicate it. So you would expect them to modernize or assimilate or progress with time, but a lot of time they're kind of time stamped in that zone. And so with that, and exploring queerness and being the first queer person in the family that's at least exploring it. It was definitely a challenge. I kind of outed myself on accident. I was like in a very young and naive phase of, oh, I'm exploring art. And so wearing heels was not queer to me. It was just, putting on a different type of shoe. And I was really dumb. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to put on a shoe. I'll take a class or I'll teach a class. And then I realized that, okay, as soon as I put a flyer saying I'm teaching a heels class, I outed myself without realizing it. And so, and I was like, this is not the best decision, but let's kind of roll with it. And then, and so initially all the people who were my generation and younger were just like, yes, all about it. And then the only thing that was like after I started, it went well within my generation and younger. But amongst the older community, I feel like there's this whole obvious taboo of one, I had long hair at the time. They're like, oh my God, that's feminine.
Yeah.
And I wear heels and then they're like, oh my God, that's like, you're trying to be like a stripper or you're trying to be, like these other perceptions of it. And then at the same time, then you're combining that with South Asian music. And then there's like, you're bringing shame to the culture or to the thing. And I think there's a lot of that just wrapped around in a scold or like a frown versus it being like so like verbal. And I think they're just like just a random or just you could feel that that disappointment or that judgment. And I think initially I was very much oblivious to it. I was like, I'm just doing my thing. I'm just gonna kind of like filter out the other negativity. And I think that and having a good friend system definitely like helped me through it. But I feel like in time, a lot of my friends, they like yelled at their parents and then they were yelling at, they were kind of very much rallying, being like, hey, they're doing such really cool work. They're changing like normalizing queerness or normalizing sensuality in South Asian dance in a way that's more empowering and not objectifying, but that's also creating visibility. And it's, this all the different things. And I think with time, it got better. Initially, I when I first started posting on social media in 2016, I got a lot of love and a lot of hate. And so it kind of started off as a journey of trying to navigate hate comments on social media. And most of the hate comments I got were from India, right? And all the people that I knew in the States, none of them, they're all like positive. But then the ones in India, like maybe like 40% of them were like hate comments. They were like either saying slurs or they're saying, oh, this is shameful or whatever. But then you'll see another like 60% of them from India, people who were very much in the closet or very much, never have never seen that in India or elsewhere. And so then I got a lot of like really lovely messages too saying, I've never seen an Indian man dance in heels or who has long hair or who's succeeding or who's like very openly out and about and just living their best life in that way. And I thought that was like, that kind of just like kept me going initially. The first class I taught, I had 2 queer boys come to class in heels and they both were like crying at the end. They were just like, oh my God, like I've never imagined wearing heels. I'd never imagined another like being comfortable enough to like wear heels in front of other non-queer people. And, and that was I think for me, what was very motivating. I was like, okay, there's the whole art and advocacy space. There's the intersection. There's a way to use art as a medium for social change. And I feel like that was kind of like, I was at a very interesting like crux, like, like crossroads of sorts where I was like, okay, career wise, am I going to enter, the general workforce? How do I change the world? And then I was like also very actively pursuing dance. And at the same time I was experimenting with this and I saw that there was an immediate impact or an immediate shift in like how people would come to take class. People felt safe and I was just like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
This is immediate. This is needed. And I wish I had that kind of space growing up, right? And I think that was like the different shift also of like having to switch from wanting something to now, oh fuck, I have to create it. And that's like a whole other, mess and a half. But long roundabout answer.
No. I mean, I think it's really interesting because like you talk a lot about, I mean, I think this is why representation, when people talk about representation, like how much that matters, right? To have these 2 queer men stop off and like be in heels and like feel safe in that space. And I also think that like, when you really think about like pre-colonization of India, especially, I'm an Indo-Fijian person, colonized and then like taken to Fiji, all this stuff. When you think about the roots though, before colonization, like it was so fluid. right? Like Indians, so fluid, gender, sexual orientation. We were really accepting of all those things before the British came in.
Very much so. I feel like that was like one of the big I did a piece like this last summer at the Asian Art Museum during Pride Month, and it was very much talking about the Khajuraho temples in India and how 10% of the temple and all the statues are erotic in nature. They're queer in nature. You'll have like lots of like just like homoerotic statues of people in very like promiscuous positions. You'll have like trans identities or like non-binary identities also carved into these temples alongside all the Hindu gods as well. And so at the very least, you can make an assumption that they coexisted, right? That they have existed for like centuries and centuries, right? And then you can maybe further assume that, okay, if they're on a temple, that maybe they were part of like integrated within society in a good way, right? Versus, all the demons of the Hindu culture, none of them are on these temples, right? So I was like, they're very much normalized. That definitely post-colonialism, I feel like there's like a erasure and a rebranding of like, okay, this is what we really need to like push forward into the society. But I feel like it's slowly coming back in waves, but then I feel like it's like one step forward, three steps back at times, especially with like current political climates and stuff too, and all of that. I feel like, we can. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, so being in the Bay Area. So we talk a lot about being Bay Area. Peelo G and I are both like in the Bay Area, grown up here. I know that was a huge inspiration, or I don't even know what the word is, motivation, acceptance of like being queer. Like, how did that affect you? Like, you're from Fremont, so a little more East Bay, Alameda County, but still close enough to the Bay Area. So how did that influence like affect you?
I guess I didn't really realize how blessed I was to be in the Bay Area, because I think growing up in Fremont, which was very predominantly Asian, I feel like it was still very conservative in that area. But the good thing is, and when I was starting to feel all the, coming out likeness or like the queerness within me just kind of like seeping out, at first I had no idea how to control it. I was like, okay, what do I do with all this, like, these emotions, these hormones, this whatever. And and I was like very much in college as it was like kind of starting. And I was like, okay, I need to go, channel this into study. So then I was like, okay, I took philosophy courses, religious philosophy. I was like, maybe religion has the answer to my queerness, right? And then I like went down that full route, and I was like, okay, I don't think they have the answer. Like, I got so far as to like, one of my majors was philosophy of religions, and my main reason for starting it was, okay, maybe religion and the ancients have figured out queerness and in a way that we haven't, or something, right? And I didn't, my conclusive answer, at least by the end of it, was they hadn't, right? And I was like, I don't think they have the answer, and I don't think and so then I was like, okay, well, so now I'm just queer, right? And so now, like, I figured, like, once I got to that point, I feel like I started opening myself up to, went to my first Pride in SF, and I think that was like one of the biggest, it was just so interesting going to Pride for the very first time, in like when I was, I think, a junior in college. And then I was like, oh my God, there are people that actually exist in open space. And I had not really seen that. Maybe in TV, you would see like one character struggling, and it would always be like trauma stories. It wouldn't necessarily be like love and success stories. It would be like, oh, one person's struggling with X, Y, and Z, and like, shame, this, that. And I was like, okay, I didn't really feel like I saw a lot of joy within being queer on television. And so when I went to Pride, I was like, oh my God, there are all these like people, and I had mixed feelings about that, about like the first Pride and all the other Pride I've went to since. But I feel like that was a big awakening for me, and I was like very grateful to be in a place that it was so accessible, right? Because I feel like for so many that's not even the case. Even though it is like an hour drive from Fremont, I still feel like I feel very blessed that it was in San Francisco. I still feel like it's very much a haven city.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think sometimes we forget we live in such a, in a bubble, right? Like, I don't know if you've been to any other Prides, but like there's something invigorating. Like, you go to New York, another great, amazing place. And it's like just that togetherness and, the amount of like, it's amazing to have so many people. I'm like, oh my God, there's more people like me.
Yeah, for sure.
I went to like Denver and New York and I think Chicago Pride like in different years, and it was like all were very different, but they're all like bigger cities, right? But I feel like anytime I've traveled or taught dance, like in different countries, like when I was in Finland teaching dance, or when I was in I did like an India teaching tour, and I was like teaching it, like heels and like talking about like queer history and dance and all that stuff in India too, and all these things that I was like, oh my God, a lot of these people will never step foot into Pride because they're so in the closet that, just stepping into Pride is like that nearby association to being outed and all that. And so I was just like, oh my God, like I know that, I remember that feeling, but then at the same time going to Pride, it's like states away, or like, there's no access. And I feel like that for that reason, I'm very grateful for social media, right? And podcasts and things like this, because it further, it gets more stories out there, which is, I think, is the big part of like what I feel like I want to like contribute a lot more to in life, is just storytelling and being able to share all these like beautiful stories that exist in hopes to, inspire or something.
Right.
That's amazing. Well, you're really inspiring. I'm curious, like who are the artists or folks that just inspire you every day?
Oh my God. I feel like oh Lord. Artists that inspire me. I feel like my co-founder really inspires me. Like I started like a Ishami dance company with my co-founder Ishika, and she was my very first contemporary teacher. And though she's not necessarily queer in that way, but but like she was the most open person I had met in the South Asian space at the time, and she was a dance major at San Jose State, and she was only around queer people like there, and as a kid I was very much like, oh, this person is not only so accepting, but like the dance community in general always felt like a safe haven. It felt like something that was where queerness was okay, all forms of movement, at least in the non-South Asian space. Like the Western space's queerness, I felt, was very like, a lot more accepted. And then, so her, for sure. I feel like in general, artist-wise, I feel so basic to say all just general pop icons. I feel like, it's Gaga was a big one for me. I was just like, Born This Way, the whole, like Madonna, sure, as well. But like, but I definitely feel like, definitely like pop icons, I felt like was very much like an awakening for me. Like a lot of Beyonce, a lot of, I feel like very basic in that way. But South Asian wise, I didn't see a lot of inspiration. I think I related a lot more to all the heartbreak songs in South Asian music, because I was like, the pain, I feel it, right? And it's like sometimes the level of pain in like Hindi or Gujarati, you can't really convey in English the same way. And so I'm just like, that I relate to, or like, that music I just resonate with a lot more. But now slowly there are a lot more queer artists in South Asian music also. So I'm like, this is really cool. Like, it's like we're at an interesting like, point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 2024 is a big year for you.
Yes.
There's so much that's going on. I know you have a production here that you have been producing here in San Francisco, but now you're taking it on the road to New York.
Yes.
Tell us more about this.
Yeah. So I had my first, started my company in 2023, and we had our first production, original production in July. And we had like 4 sold out shows, and I was just like, this is crazy. And then we went, and then we were like, okay, what if we toured the show? Let's explore the idea. And so now this like 2024 February, we're taking the show to New York. The show is very much about identity. It's called Pehchan, which means identity in Hindi. And the show is basically about stories of different South Asian experiences, whether it's diasporic or immigrant, whether it's talking about displacement stories, whether it's talking about queer stories that exist within South Asian movement and dance history, whether one of my favorite pieces that my co-founder choreographed was about the invisible work of women. And that was like, a full piece about, the joy of like these communities of women, and how like leisure is thought of, like the concept of leisure in these like societies as well, about how, imagine if all the women had not to worry and they could all just read newspapers and, like, and do all the same things that would be like traditionally meant for men in these like more rural societies. And so, just exploring all these different stories with a different perspective and allowing, different languages of India to also like enter like the same space. And the show is very special. I feel like I'm really excited because it's kind of very much what I've wanted to do for a long time, which was like, I love in-person experiences. I very much love like that feeling when you watch a live show and a production, you can feel something so real, whether it's like the sound, the vibration of music, or just the emotion of an art, like of a performer. And so, yeah, I'm just excited. I feel like it's going to be a good show. We have we have like a show or something at least lined up for every month until June. So I'm just like, this is really cool as a new company. And especially being so queer forward and very like story driven and making that a big like priority and at the forefront of what we do is such a big deal. And even like one of our bigger projects, which we're performing next month as well, is we're working with this nonprofit called Maitri. And they basically work with like women, like, to like help like domestic violence survivors, like find, lots, like all getting them all resources to, whether it's from lawyers to like shelters to whatever. And basically one of our big goals was to work with nonprofits to also, like use art as a way to help them get, whether it's funding or like share those stories. And so I'm just like, oh, this is very much aligning with my mission. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is great. And hopefully get paid in the process.
Yeah. How do folks get into getting tickets for these shows? Or like, where are you going to be hopping around? Is it just New York, San Francisco?
Yeah. So on our website, ishamidancecompany.com, we'll have, you just get all the tickets through there. Like it's on our upcoming events page, or there's a separate tab just for the show itself called Bechan. And yeah, you get your tickets there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter, we send out like a monthly newsletter thing, everything that's upcoming. We also teach classes as well, and through the Desi Dance community, and that's now like a project that I like founded now that's coming under our company as well. And yeah, so just all things, if you want to learn, if you want to watch, if you want to we also have a blog where we talk called Intermission, which is very much just talking and dissecting different topics within dance and South Asian, topics related to art. And so, yeah, it's all things on ishamidancecompany.com. Yeah.
Perfect. Good to hear. And it just sounds like as we're having this conversation, it sounds like there's so much like social justice kind of woven within your dance. And, you've talked about like art and advocacy and all of these things. Why is it so important for you to like weave social justice, and like what things are you kind of passionate about?
I mean, in general, for one, I'm very passionate about just like all things queer, like LGBTQ plus related, just because I feel like, for me, I found a lot of like solace within my own identity through the arts. And I feel like through teaching, I found that like so many other of my students or people I've worked with have also found their identities or their intersectionalities through movement, or some, and whether it's not dance, it could be anything else for anybody, right? But I found that a lot of the people who want to take dance, they want to either share a story, or they want to, find themselves, or they just want to grow. And I feel like that was really surprising. I thought like so many people were like, oh, we just want to like look good, have a cute Instagram video, and we just want to like, or, I don't know what their goal is. Maybe it's to be a professional dancer or whatever. But like I found that most of my students that I have, they're like, oh, we want to feel something. We want to release. We want to share our stories. And I'm like, that's really cool. Everyone does have a unique story to tell. And so that's been something. But I think one of the main reasons was also as I was, post college as well, I was at this like crossroads of like, okay, if I want to change the world, my initial path was like go to law school, do like some sort of like international law or like that kind of space. And then from there I was like, okay, well, at the moment I'm dancing, I'm in the physical body to be able to do this for a lot longer now than I will like 10 years, 15 years from now. And so I think that just kind of made the decision. And then my thing was like, okay, if I wanted to create impact through art, most people consume music or dance or movies or whatever. And I was like, okay, dance is another way to just do that as well. Or, I think we talked about this briefly earlier, was also just how there's a lot of crap happening in the world, and sometimes art is a way of diffusing things, right? Or making people think a little bit differently as well. And I think that was kind of one of my personal mission statements. That was about how, one of my biggest goals was to make people think, right? It doesn't have to be like, oh, I need you to act a certain way. I just need you to like think or question or something, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was, if I can make you feel or think, that my goal has been accomplished, right? And I think that was, and if that's about, you know, like seeing two queer people dancing on stage together, if that's seeing, a bunch of women, you know, like, you know, reading newspapers on stage and, you know, like letting go of, you know, housework and all that stuff, or whether it's like anything else, right? I'm just like, they can then, if my parents or older generations watch it, then if they at least think a little bit, then I'm like, okay, that's hopefully diffusing something, or, you know, allowing some sort of open-mindedness. And I feel like that's kind of where my goal is at the moment, is to like diffuse, to like, you know, just chill people out.
Awesome.
You know?
What would you tell the 18-year-old person? What would you tell yourself now, knowing what you know now and all the incredible projects and people that you've met and traveled globally? Like, what would you say to yourself? 18.
Oh my God, my 18-year-old self, I would say, okay, learn how to do accounting and taxes early. I'd be like, oh my God, all these things. I was like, I wish they taught that in school. I would say that first. No, I'm just kidding. But I feel like my 18-year-old self, I would say, you know, the one thing I will say is I feel like I learned so much from like trial and error and failure. And I feel like the consistent thing is very much that it's better to try and fail than not to do it at all, or don't second guess, or, you know, just go with it and say fuck it, because then you'll only grow from there. And I think that was like the biggest thing for so long with, you know, I was in analysis paralysis mode, where I'm just like, okay, I need to do something and make it perfect, and, you know, go through that whole process. And even with like, whether it's queerness or whether like, I was like, okay, I need the perfect coming out. I need the perfect this or whatever. I'm like, okay, that does not exist anywhere in the universe. And I feel like as soon as I got over that, I started letting go the idea of perfection, or like, this is the perfect time. And I'm just like, it'll happen, it'll work. And then it'll work itself out in the end. And then, yeah, I feel like that would be like the main thing. And I don't know if my 18-year-old self would have listened to that, honestly. But, you know, like, I feel like I remember like my dad was very much like, I read so many like self-help books. I was like such a like avid reader in high school and in early college and stuff. And so like I read all like the Jim Rohn, like 7 Habits of whatever, and like all like the art of and skill of managing people and all this shit at like 17, 18. And I was like, Dad, this is crap. Like, I was so upset. I was like, this is not like, who does this work on? You know? And I'm just like, but yeah, I would say that would be the main thing. I think I still believe in that right now.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so last question for you before we kind of wrap up here. Yeah. We talked a little bit about your company in 2024, just kind of how ambitious. What about on the personal front? Like, do you have any manifestations for 2024?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I am in a, in a very lovely committed relationship with my partner. So personally, I'm just really excited to move in with my partner. We're both, are both of our first relationships, being this long and this committed and this serious. And so I'm hoping, we're definitely moving in together this year. We just got a home in SF together. Yay. And hopefully more things are happening, some more fun, engagement announcements and things like that.
Ooh,
so
we're here for it.
Yes, we are.
We're struggling right now with who's proposing to who. And so that's the biggest talk in our discussions. But I feel like being able to live that life and see where that goes, it's like very special. And like, I'm just like still like pinching myself where I'm like, okay, is this really happening? Is this is this real life, in that sense of like, I didn't see this last year or the year before. I didn't see that this would be a potential reality. And I'm like, okay, now it's like, maybe.
It's so interesting. I think that's like a funny thing that you bring up is like who does propose to who.
I've seen those dual engagements.
The dual, but I mean, like initially, like who does it, right? And I think we've talked about this a little bit because I actually proposed to my partner first, and I'm the femme, and they're more masculine presenting, and it was like when you don't have those like heteronormative things, it's like, well, this felt right, and I wanted to. It's like, but how do you decide that? I think in like queer culture, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, and both of us had this thing of like, oh, we wanted to to be proposed to first, and then and then we're like, okay, whoever proposes second has to do a bigger and better job. And
wow!
So now it's like
get in there, be the first one.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm like, okay, small and intimate to start, and so yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, I think I'm like really just excited for that. I feel like that'll be a really cool, chapter in life.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And congratulations. Relationships are so hard.
Yes,
hard on these streets.
hard on the streets.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
But that's what I think you mentioned in the beginning too, why it's so important to have like friends, chosen family, like people who can support you. Because relationships are great, your romantic relationships, but you still kind of need like that support system, whether it's family or chosen family or friends, So congratulations. So many great things that are happening for you, Amit. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We've loved having you.
Hey, thank you both for having me as well. I appreciate this conversation and everything as well.
I love you. And we look forward to all your projects this year.
Yes, yes.
Please.
You might see us in some heels at one of your shows here.
Well, at least one of us, 50%.
Okay, done. Yeah.
Awesome. So can you let us know where can we follow you?
Okay, so on Instagram, mine is at _Amit Dances, and my dance company is ishamidancecompany.com, and that's where you can find out all about our upcoming events and shows. We have a show in New York coming up in February, and we have at least a couple of performances every month in the Bay Area until June. And so, yeah, that's kind of the best place, and I think, that's mostly it.
Awesome.
All right. Well, that's your shot of culture for today, folks. If you have any questions, want to get a hold of us or want to get a hold of Amit, please go ahead and email us at shotofculturepodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.